Get your filthy hands off my counter!
I just wanted to ask.
Ask? You reek. You look like you crawled out of a dumpster. This is a 5-star hotel, not a shelter for people like you.
Sir, I have every right.
Your only right is to leave.
He snatched up the phone.
Kerr, you're trespassing in my hotel. Police! Black female refusing to leave. Trespassing on private property. Get someone here now!
He hung up and pointed at the door.
Wait on that curb like the trash you are!
Brianna stood still, hands at her sides, eyes locked on his. What this man would learn in 30 minutes would end his entire career. 3 hours earlier, Brianna Foster stood in the bathroom of a Hampton Inn 2 miles from the Charleston waterfront. She stared at herself in the mirror. No makeup, hair pulled back in a simple twist. Jeans, white sneakers, a cotton blouse she bought at Target 3 years ago. This was deliberate. Brianna owned 12 boutique hotels across the Southeast. Her company, Foster Heritage Group, managed over 400 employees and brought in $62 million in annual revenue. She had closed the acquisition of the Harrington Grand 3 months ago through a corporate trust. The staff had never seen her face. The management team knew only that a new ownership group had taken over. No name, no photo, no introduction. That was the point. Brianna had built her empire on a simple principle. You learn the truth about a business by showing up as nobody. No announcement, no entourage, no designer bag signaling wealth. Just a black woman in jeans walking through the front door. She had done this 11 times before. Every hotel she purchased, she visited unannounced within the first 6 months. She walked the hallways, she checked the bathrooms, she sat in the lobby and watched how staff treated the guests who looked like they belonged, and the ones who didn't. 7 of those 11 visits had gone smoothly. The staff were professional. The service was consistent regardless of who walked in. 4 times, it wasn't. In Savannah, a front desk clerk told her the hotel was fully booked. It wasn't. In Birmingham, a security guard followed her through every hallway for 20 minutes. In Nashville, a valet refused to park her rental car because he assumed she was in the wrong parking lot. Each time, Brianna took notes. Each time, heads rolled quietly. New training programs, new hires, sometimes terminations. But she had never experienced what was about to happen in Charleston. The Harrington Grand sat on Meeting Street, 3 blocks from the harbor. 120 rooms, marble floors imported from Italy, a rooftop bar that Charleston Magazine had named the best in the city 2 years running. It was the crown jewel of her portfolio, at least on paper. The reality was different. Brianna had been reviewing the numbers for weeks. Guest satisfaction scores had dropped 14% in the past year. Staff turnover was double the industry average. 3 formal complaints about discriminatory treatment had been filed and quietly buried by the general manager, a man named Derek Caldwell. Caldwell had run the Harrington for 6 years. He answered to the previous ownership group, who gave him near-total autonomy. He set the dress code. He approved the guest list for private events. He decided who got upgraded and who got the room next to the elevator. By every account, he ran the hotel like it was his personal kingdom. Brianna had read his file. Excellent revenue performance, high marks from corporate. But buried beneath the spreadsheets were patterns that didn't sit right. The 3 discrimination complaints, a wrongful termination claim from a black housekeeper named Gloria Simmons, who said Caldwell fired her for reporting his racial comments about guests. The claim was settled quietly. Gloria signed an NDA. The file was closed. Brianna didn't close files. She opened them. She drove her rental, a plain gray sedan, into the hotel's guest parking lot at 9:15 on a Tuesday morning. The Charleston heat was already thick. Humidity pressed against the windshield like a warm hand. She could smell the salt marshes through the cracked window. She grabbed her purse. No briefcase, no laptop bag, nothing that announced who she was. She pushed through the old revolving door. The lobby opened up before her. High ceilings, crystal chandeliers, black and white checkered marble stretching to the concierge desk. A massive flower arrangement sat on the center table. Lilies wilting at the edges, water cloudy in the glass vase. She noticed. She always noticed. A young black bellhop stood near the elevator, hands clasped behind his back. His name tag read, Terrence. He gave her a small nod and a quiet smile. At the front desk, a clerk scrolled through her phone, not looking up. And behind the desk, adjusting his cufflinks in the reflection of a brass plaque, stood Derek Caldwell. He hadn't seen her yet. In about 4 minutes, he would make the worst decision of his life. Brianna walked toward the front desk. Her sneakers made no sound on the marble. She stood at the counter for a full 30 seconds before the clerk even looked up. "Can I help you?" The woman's voice was flat. No smile, no eye contact. She didn't put down her phone. "I'd like to know about your room rates," Brianna said, "and maybe take a look around the property." The clerk's eyes traveled from Brianna's sneakers to her jeans to her plain cotton blouse. The assessment took 3 seconds. The judgment took less. "We're fully booked." "For today?" "For the foreseeable future." Brianna nodded slowly. She looked past the clerk to the key rack behind the desk. At least 40 hooks had keys hanging from them. Fully booked. Interesting. "Your online listing shows 17 rooms available tonight," Brianna said. The clerk's jaw tightened. Before she could respond, a voice cut in from the back office. "Is there a problem here?" Derek Caldwell stepped out. Tall, mid-40s, pressed navy suit, gold name tag reading General Manager. His cologne hit the air before he did. Heavy, sweet, suffocating. He looked at the clerk first, then at Brianna. His expression changed the instant his eyes landed on her. It wasn't subtle. His nostrils flared, his chin lifted. He stepped in front of the counter like he was guarding a vault. "Ma'am." He used the word like a blade. "What exactly are you doing in my hotel?" "Asking about room availability." "Room availability." He said it slowly, like she'd spoken another language. "And why would someone like you need a room at the Harrington Grand?" Someone like you. Brianna let it land. She'd heard it before. Savannah, Birmingham, Nashville. The words changed. The meaning never did. "I'm interested in the property. I'd like to see the facilities." Derek planted both hands on the counter and leaned forward. "Let me educate you, since you seem confused. This is not a Motel 6. This is not a Days Inn. This is not whatever roadside dump you're used to sleeping in. The Harrington Grand is a luxury establishment. Our guests arrive in town cars. They wear watches that cost more than your entire year. They don't walk in off the street in filthy sneakers asking to look around like they're at a damn yard sale." He paused, looked at her shoes. "Those are disgusting, by the way. You're tracking dirt on a floor that costs more per square foot than your rent." A couple sitting near the fireplace lowered their newspapers. A businessman at the elevator bank stopped scrolling. The bellhop, Terrence, stood frozen near the luggage cart, eyes moving between Brianna and his boss. "I'm not here to cause any trouble," Brianna said evenly. "Trouble?" Derek laughed. A hard, ugly sound. "Honey, you are the trouble. You walked in here smelling like a city bus. You're standing in a lobby full of paying guests who don't want to look at this." He waved his hand up and down at her body. "Whatever this is." He turned to the couple near the fireplace. "I sincerely apologize for the disturbance, folks. This will be taken care of right now." The woman on the sofa gave a tight nod. Her husband shifted in his seat and said nothing. Neither of them looked at Brianna. Derek straightened his jacket and turned back. "Still here?" Fine, let me humor you. He made a show of typing on the computer. 3 keystrokes, a dramatic squint at the screen, then a smile, thin, cold, rehearsed. No reservation, under any name. What a shock. You barely typed anything. I typed enough. He leaned closer. Close enough that she could see the capillaries spreading beneath his skin, the thin gold chain under his collar, the vein pulsing at his temple. I've been managing luxury properties for 15 years. I can spot someone who doesn't belong before they reach the front desk. And you, sweetheart, you don't belong here. You've never belonged in a place like this. And you never will. The lobby was silent now. Every guest had stopped what they were doing. A woman by the gift shop covered her mouth. A concierge at the side desk pretended to study his screen, but his fingers weren't moving. Brianna felt the heat climb from her chest into her throat. She had trained herself for moments like these. Years of walking into rooms where people decided who she was before she said a word. Years of converting insults into data, humiliation into leverage. But Derek Caldwell, the way he stood with his chin raised, his voice pitched to fill every corner, his body angled to block her from the counter like she was a contaminant, was testing every thread of that discipline. She uncurled her fingers, slowly. "I'd like to speak with the owner," she said. Derek's laugh was short and sharp. "The owner? The owner?" He turned to the clerk. "Rachel, she wants to speak with the owner. Isn't that precious?" Rachel managed a weak smile. Her eyes said something different. "Let me break this down for you, since clearly you don't understand how the world works." Derek stepped around the counter. He was in front of her now, barely 2 feet away. "I don't even talk to the owner. Nobody does. Some faceless investment group bought this place 3 months ago and hasn't sent so much as an email. They don't show up, they don't call, because they don't need to. You know why?" He jabbed a finger toward his own chest. "Because I run this hotel. I make every decision. I hire, I fire. I decide who walks through that door and who doesn't. And today, right now, I'm deciding that you don't." He pulled out his phone. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk out that door on your own 2 feet. Or I'm going to call the Charleston Police Department, and they're going to come in here with handcuffs and drag you out in front of everyone for criminal trespassing. Your choice." "Trespassing," Brianna said quietly, "for standing in a lobby. For being somewhere you have absolutely no right to be." His thumb hovered over the dial screen. "You have 10 seconds. Terrence stepped forward. Just 1 step. A slight extension of his hand. "Ma'am, can I get you some water while you—" "Terrence!" Derek's voice cracked like a gunshot across the marble. "What did I just say? Step back, right now. You do not serve people who are not guests of this hotel. You do not speak to them. You do not acknowledge them. Do you understand me? Or do you want to join her outside?" Terrence recoiled. His hand dropped. He moved behind the luggage cart and stood there with his jaw clenched and his eyes fixed on the floor. Brianna watched every second of it. She watched a young man reach out with basic human kindness and get destroyed for it. She watched his shoulders fold inward. She watched him disappear behind the cart like he wanted to vanish. She filed everything. The clerk's silence. The guests' frozen faces. Terrence's humiliation. The 40 keys dangling untouched behind the desk. "Time's up." Derek pressed the phone to his ear. "Yes, this is Derek Caldwell, General Manager at the Harrington Grand, 215 Meeting Street. I need officers dispatched to the lobby immediately. I have a black female, mid-30s, no identification, no reservation, who is refusing to vacate the premises. She's trespassing and causing a disturbance. Yes, I'll hold. He kept the phone against his ear, stared at Brianna with the calm satisfaction of a man who had already won. They're on their way, he said. Charleston PD knows this hotel. They know me personally. I suggest you start walking. Brianna looked around the lobby one final time. The couple by the fireplace had buried their faces in their papers. The businessman had his phone angled toward her, recording. Rachel gripped the counter edge, knuckles bone white. The woman by the gift shop had turned away. The concierge still hadn't moved his fingers, and Terrence stood behind his luggage cart, unable to lift his head. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Nobody helped. Brianna turned and walked toward the revolving door. Her sneakers made no sound. She pushed through and stepped into the Charleston morning. Humidity pressed against her skin like a damp hand. Salt air and magnolia drifted up from the harbor 2 blocks south. Behind her, muffled through the glass, she heard Derek's voice addressing the lobby. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for that. The Harrington maintains the highest standards. That's my commitment to each and every one of you. A smattering of polite applause. Brianna stood on the sidewalk and pulled out her phone. She dialed one number. Raymond, I'm at the Harrington. Bring the deed, the acquisition documents, every employment file in this building, every complaint that was buried, all of it. A police cruiser turned the corner at the end of the block, lights flashing silently. And Raymond, bring a witness. The cruiser pulled into the hotel's circular driveway and stopped at an angle, blocking the entrance. 2 officers stepped out. The older one, gray at the temples, thick through the shoulders, moved with the unhurried confidence of a man who'd done this 1,000 times. His name tag read Sergeant Briggs. The younger one, early 30s, had a tight jaw and careful eyes. Officer Hamley. Derek was already outside before they reached the steps. Officers, thank you for the quick response. He extended his hand. Briggs shook it like they were golfing buddies. Derek Caldwell, General Manager. We spoke on the phone. What's the situation? Briggs asked. Derek turned and Brianna, standing on the sidewalk with her phone still in her hand. That woman. She walked into my hotel without a reservation, without identification, and refused to leave when I asked her multiple times. She was harassing our guests and creating a hostile environment in the lobby. Brianna put her phone in her pocket. She watched. She waited. Briggs approached. Ma'am, I'm Sergeant Briggs, Charleston PD. Can you tell me what happened? I walked into the hotel and asked about room availability, Brianna said. The manager told me to leave. I asked why. He called you. That is not what happened, Derek shouted from behind. She was loitering. She was combative. She refused a lawful order from hotel management to vacate the premises. Briggs held up a hand toward Derek without turning. Sir, I'll get to you. He looked at Brianna. Ma'am, do you have identification? She handed him her driver's license. He walked to the cruiser, ran it through the system. 2 minutes. He came back. She's clean. No warrants, no priors, not even a parking ticket. I don't care about her record. Derek stepped forward, voice rising. She is not a registered guest. She refused to leave a private establishment. That is criminal trespassing under South Carolina Code 1611-600, and I want her removed from my property. Now. He memorized the statute number. He'd done this before. Officer Hanley shifted his weight. He looked at Brianna, then at Derek, then at the ground. His hand rested near his belt, but his fingers were still. Something behind his eyes said this didn't sit right, but he didn't speak. Briggs turned back to Brianna. Ma'am, the property manager does have the authority to ask individuals to leave. Regardless of the circumstances, I'm going to have to... I understand, Brianna said. Then I'll ask you to move along. If you want to file a complaint, you can do so at the station or online. A complaint. She repeated the word quietly. I'll remember that. Derek couldn't help himself. He stepped between the officers, chest out, hands on his hips. The posture of a man standing on land he believed was his. You know what the real problem is, officers? His voice was pitched for the audience. The guests pressed against the lobby windows, watching. People like her think they can walk into any place they want and demand to be treated like everyone else. They can't. Not here. The Harrington has a reputation. We have a clientele. We have standards. And if protecting those standards makes me the villain, then fine. I'll wear that badge proudly. He turned to Brianna. His eyes were steady and cold. Let me make something crystal clear. If I see your face anywhere near this hotel, the lobby, the parking lot, even the sidewalk out front, I will have you arrested. Not asked to leave, not escorted out. Arrested. Handcuffed, processed. Do you understand me? Brianna said nothing. I asked you a question, Derek said. I heard you, Brianna replied. Derek snorted. He turned back to the officers, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial murmur, the kind of tone men use when they think they're among friends. And you want to hear the best part? She asked to speak with the owner. The owner. He shook his head, grinning. Like someone who shows up in Walmart sneakers knows the first thing about running a $60 million property. The delusion is, it's actually impressive. Briggs said nothing. Hanley stared at the pavement. Ma'am, Briggs said flatly, you need to leave the premises now. Brianna nodded once. She looked at Briggs, who wouldn't hold her gaze. Then at Hanley, who wouldn't lift his. Then at Derek, standing in front of his hotel with arms crossed and chin raised like a monument to his own authority. She memorized every detail. The gold cufflinks catching sunlight, the smirk carved into his face, the way he'd positioned the officers on either side of him like props. She turned. She walked down the sidewalk, slowly, without hurry. Her sneakers scraped softly against the hot pavement. Behind her, Derek clapped Briggs on the shoulder, like they'd just won a game together. I appreciate you boys, seriously. Can't have people like that wandering into places like this. Sends the wrong message. Kills the brand. Just doing our job, Briggs said. And you do it damn well. Tell your captain I said hello. We host the department Christmas party every year. Top shelf, open bar, on the house. You're always welcome. Briggs nodded. Both officers returned to the cruiser. They pulled out of the driveway without a single glance at the woman standing on the sidewalk. Derek watched them go. He adjusted his tie, surveyed the entrance, waved at a guest peering from a second-floor window. Then he pushed through the revolving door and stepped back into his kingdom. He gathered the staff and remaining guests near the front desk. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to personally apologize for what you witnessed. Your comfort and safety are my absolute top priority. What happened today was an unfortunate intrusion by someone who had no business being here. It's been handled. Decisively. The Harrington Grand remains what it has always been, a place of class, distinction, and excellence. That will never change as long as I'm in charge. Rachel clapped first. 2 guests followed. A third. The sound echoed across the marble. Terrence stood near the elevator. His hands hung at his sides. He did not clap. Derek returned to his office, closed the door, and sat behind his mahogany desk. He opened his laptop and began typing. Subject: trespassing incident. Unauthorized individual removed by law enforcement. At approximately 9:25 a.m., An unidentified black female entered the lobby without a reservation or legitimate business purpose. She became aggressive, confrontational, and verbally hostile towards staff and management. After being warned multiple times, the individual refused to comply. Law enforcement was contacted. 2 officers from the Charleston Police Department responded and escorted the individual off the property. No physical altercation occurred. No guests were harmed. Incident resolved. Case closed. He read it twice. Changed aggressive to highly aggressive. Added a line. Management recommends distributing the individual's description to front desk staff to prevent re-entry. He clicked save. Then he poured coffee from the machine behind his desk, leaned back in his leather chair, and looked out at the Charleston skyline through the tall window. The sun caught the harbor. The palmettos swayed. Everything was exactly where it should be. He had no idea that the woman he'd just humiliated was sitting in a rental car 1 block south, watching his window, waiting. He had no idea that a man in a dark gray suit was walking through the parking lot at that very moment, carrying a leather portfolio thick with documents that would dismantle his entire world. And he had absolutely no idea that the hotel he called mine, every room, every chandelier, every square inch of imported Italian marble he loved to brag about, belonged to the woman he'd just called trash. The revolving door turned. Derek looked up from his coffee. Through his office window, he saw a man crossing the lobby. Tall, black, mid-50s, wearing a dark gray suit that fit like it was sewn onto his body. He carried a leather portfolio under one arm and walked with the kind of stride that didn't ask for permission. Derek set down his mug and stepped out of his office. "Can I help you, sir?" The man stopped at the front desk. He placed the portfolio on the counter and opened it with one hand. "My name is Raymond Ellis. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Foster Heritage Group. I'm here on behalf of the owner of this property." Derek blinked. "The owner?" "That's correct." "Well, we deal with the management company. All communications go through corporate channels. If the ownership group wants a meeting, they can contact my office and—" "They're not requesting a meeting, Mr. Caldwell." Raymond's voice was calm, precise, the kind of calm that comes from knowing exactly what's about to happen. "The owner is here, in person, and she would like to speak with you directly." Derek straightened. He tugged his jacket, touched his tie, ran a hand over his hair. The reflexes of a man preparing to impress someone important. "Of course, absolutely. Where is the owner? I'll clear the conference room." "That won't be necessary." Raymond turned toward the revolving door. He didn't gesture. He didn't wave. He simply looked. And Brianna Foster walked back in. Same jeans, same sneakers, same cotton blouse. Same woman Derek had called trash 45 minutes ago. She crossed the lobby floor, her sneakers silent on the marble, and stopped 3 feet in front of Derek Caldwell. The color drained from his face. It didn't fade. It vanished, like someone had pulled a plug beneath his skin. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. "Mr. Caldwell," Raymond said, his voice carrying across the silent lobby. He turned the portfolio toward Derek, page by page. "This is the deed of ownership for the Harrington Grand, transferred to Foster Heritage Group on March 14th of this year. This is the acquisition agreement, signed and notarized. This is the corporate charter listing the sole principal and CEO of Foster Heritage Group." He tapped the name at the bottom of the page, printed in clean black ink. Brianna S. Foster. "This woman," Raymond continued, "is the sole owner of this hotel. She owns the building. She owns the land beneath it. She owns every piece of furniture, every fixture, every chandelier hanging from every ceiling. She owns the desk you're leaning on. She owns the office you just walked out of. She owns the chair you were sitting in when you drank your coffee and typed a false incident report about her. Derek's hand gripped the edge of the counter. His knuckles went white. His mouth moved, but no sound came out, just a dry, clicking noise, like a man trying to swallow something that wouldn't go down. Rachel stared from behind the desk, both hands over her mouth. The businessman who'd been recording earlier had his phone raised again, lens pointed directly at Derek's face. Two guests near the fireplace stood frozen. A woman by the elevator whispered to her husband, "Oh my God." Terrence stood near the luggage cart. His eyes were wide, his lips pressed together. He didn't smile, not yet, but something in his posture had changed. He was standing straighter. Brianna looked at Derek. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "My name is Brianna Foster. I purchased this hotel 3 months ago. I came here today to see how it operates. I wanted to see how your staff treats people. I wanted to see how you treat people." She paused. Let the silence press against him. "I watched you block me from the front desk. I heard you tell me I smelled like a bus. I heard you call me trash. I watched you threaten to fire a young man for offering me a glass of water. I stood on the sidewalk while you called the police and told them a black female was trespassing in her own hotel." Derek's breathing was shallow now, rapid. His eyes darted to the officers. Briggs and Hanley had come back inside, called by Raymond. They stood near the entrance, reading the documents Raymond had handed them. Briggs's face was unreadable. Hanley's was not. Hanley looked like a man who wanted to disappear. "And then," Brianna continued, "you went back to your office and wrote an incident report describing me as highly aggressive and confrontational. You recommended distributing my description to staff to prevent re-entry. Into my own building." She took one step closer. "You asked me earlier if I understood you. Let me ask you the same question, Mr. Caldwell. Do you understand what's happening right now?" Derek's mouth finally produced words. They came out thin and broken. I didn't know. There was no way I could have." "You're right," Brianna said. "You didn't know. You had no idea who I was. And that's exactly the point. Because the way you treated me had nothing to do with who I am. It had everything to do with what I look like." The lobby was silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Derek stood in the middle of it all, his gold name tag still gleaming, his tie still straight, his cufflink still catching the light. And for the first time in 6 years, he had nothing to say. Brianna didn't wait for Derek to recover. She turned to Raymond. "Pull up his employment contract." Raymond reached into the portfolio and produced a stapled document. He held it open and read aloud, his voice carrying across the lobby like a courtroom recitation. Section 12, paragraph B, morality clause. Any conduct by the employee that brings disrepute, public embarrassment, or legal liability to the ownership group, its properties, or its brand shall constitute grounds for immediate termination without severance. He closed the document and set it on the counter. Derek's eyes locked on the paper. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. You can't do this. I have rights. I've been here 6 years. I built this hotel's reputation from the ground up. The revenue, the ratings, the Christmas gala, that was all me. You can't just walk in and... I can, Brianna said. I own the building. I own your position. And as of right now, I'm exercising the morality clause in your contract. She paused. You're fired, Mr. Caldwell. Effective immediately. The words landed on the marble floor and stayed there. Nobody picked them up. Nobody argued. The lobby held its breath. Derek's face cycled through 3 stages in rapid succession. Shock, white, bloodless, mouth hanging open. Then anger, the red climbing from his collar to his ears, his fists tightening at his sides. Then something else. Something that looked almost like fear. This is wrongful termination. I'll sue. I'll call my lawyer. I'll take this to the labor board, to the media, to... Your contract is at-will employment with a morality clause, Raymond said, without raising his voice. You were recorded by multiple witnesses, including at least one guest whose video is likely already on the internet, calling the property owner trash, threatening her with arrest, filing a false incident report, and instructing police to remove her from her own building. You have no case, Mr. Caldwell. What you have is a box to pack. Derek turned to Rachel. Rachel, tell them. Tell them I was following protocol. Tell them she didn't identify herself. Tell them... Rachel looked at the floor. Her hands were clasped in front of her. She shook her head once, barely perceptible, and said nothing. Derek turned to the guests. The couple by the fireplace wouldn't meet his eyes. The businessman lowered his phone, but kept it recording. The woman near the elevator pulled her husband toward the hallway. Nobody spoke for him. Nobody moved. Your key card, Brianna said. Derek stared at her. Your key card, Mr. Caldwell, and your name tag. His hand went to the gold tag on his lapel. His fingers fumbled with the pin, once, twice, like his body was refusing to cooperate with what his mind already knew. He pulled it off. The fabric beneath it had a small hole where the pin had sat for 6 years. He set the name tag on the counter. It made a small, sharp sound against the marble, a tiny click that echoed in the silence like a period at the end of a sentence. Then the key card. He pulled it from his jacket pocket and placed it beside the tag. His hand trembled. Brianna looked at Sergeant Briggs, who was standing near the entrance with the ownership documents still in his hands. Sergeant, would you escort Mr. Caldwell off the property? He is no longer an employee of this hotel, and he has no authorization to be on the premises. The irony was not lost on anyone in the room. Briggs hesitated for a fraction of a second. Then he nodded. Mr. Caldwell, this way, please. Derek looked at Briggs. The same man who had shaken his hand 30 minutes ago. The same man who had removed Brianna at his request. The same man who was now removing him at hers. Hanley held the door open. Derek walked. His shoes, polished, expensive, Italian, clicked against the same marble floor he had bragged about. He passed the front desk where he had blocked Brianna. He passed the luggage cart where Terrence still stood. He passed the spot where he had stood and declared that the Harrington Grand was a place of class, distinction, and excellence. Terrence didn't look away this time. He watched Derek walk every single step to the door. And when Derek pushed through the revolving door and stepped into the Charleston heat, the same heat Brianna had stood in while he sipped coffee and wrote lies about her, Terrence allowed himself one thing, a small, quiet nod. Not of satisfaction, not of revenge, just acknowledgement that for the first time in a long time, the right person had walked out that door. The video hit the internet before Derek's car left the parking lot. The businessman, his name was Craig Whitmore, a tech consultant from Atlanta who happened to be staying at the Harrington on business, had recorded 11 minutes of footage. From the moment Derek told Brianna she smelled like a bus station, to the moment Sergeant Briggs escorted him through the revolving door. Craig uploaded it to Twitter at 10:47 a.m. with one line of caption. Hotel manager calls police on black woman for trespassing. She's the owner. Watch what happens. By noon, the video had 400,000 views. By 3 p.m., 2 million. By midnight, It crossed 8 million and was trending under 3 different hashtags: hashtag Justice at the Harrington, hashtag She Owns the Place, and hashtag Fire Derek Caldwell. The comment sections exploded. Thousands of people sharing their own stories of being profiled, dismissed, humiliated in hotels, restaurants, airports, department stores. Brianna's calm, the way she stood with her hands folded, the way she never raised her voice, the way she looked Derek dead in the eyes and said, "That's exactly the point," became the centerpiece of every reaction video and news segment. CNN picked it up first, then MSN, BC, then Fox, then local Charleston affiliates, who sent crews to the hotel within hours. Reporters stood in front of the revolving door and recited the facts like a verdict being read. A hotel general manager called police on a black woman and accused her of trespassing. That woman turned out to be the owner of the hotel. The manager has been terminated. Brianna gave one interview. One. She sat in the lobby of her own hotel, the same lobby where Derek had told her she didn't belong, and spoke to a reporter from the Charleston Post and Courier. "I didn't come here to make a scene," she said. "I came to see how my hotel treats people, and I got my answer." The reporter asked if she felt vindicated. "I feel tired," Brianna said. "This isn't the first time this has happened to me. It's just the first time someone recorded it." That quote ran on the front page the next morning. But the video was only the beginning. Raymond Ellis filed a formal civil rights complaint with the South Carolina Human Rights Commission within 48 hours. The complaint named Derek Caldwell personally and cited violations of Title II of the Civil Rights Act, denial of service, and discriminatory treatment in a place of public accommodation. The commission opened an investigation. Subpoenas were issued, and what they found, buried in the Harrington's files, was worse than anyone expected. 3 formal complaints from black guests had been filed over the previous 2 years. A couple from Philadelphia who said they were denied a room upgrade given to a white couple who checked in after them. A family from D.C. whose children were asked to leave the pool area because another guest said they were too loud, the only children asked to leave. A retired professor from Savannah who was stopped in the hallway by security and asked to prove he was a guest. 3 times in one stay. All 3 complaints had been received by Derek Caldwell. All 3 had been marked resolved, no action required. All 3 complainants said they never received a response. Then Gloria Simmons came forward. Gloria had worked as head housekeeper at the Harrington for 4 years. She was good at her job, meticulous, punctual, liked by the guests who noticed clean rooms and fresh towels. But in her 3rd year, she overheard Derek making comments to a front desk clerk about a black family checking in. Comments about certain guests lowering the tone. Comments about keeping the lobby presentable. Gloria reported it to HR. 2 weeks later, Derek called her into his office and fired her for persistent attitude problems and insubordination. There was no documentation of any prior warnings, no write-ups, no performance reviews citing attitude issues. Gloria filed a wrongful termination claim. The previous ownership group settled it quietly for $12,000 and a non-disclosure agreement. Gloria signed because she needed the money. She had 2 kids and no savings. When the video went viral, Gloria called a lawyer. The NDA, her attorney argued, was signed under duress and could not prevent her from participating in a civil rights investigation. A judge agreed. Gloria gave a sworn deposition detailing everything she'd witnessed during her time at the Harrington: the comments, the selective enforcement, the complaints that vanished. Her testimony was devastating. The EEOC opened a parallel federal investigation into discriminatory employment practices under Derek's management. They subpoenaed hiring records and found a pattern. In 6 years, Derek had hired 43 front desk and management staff. 41 were white. The 2 who weren't lasted less than 6 months each. Derek tried to fight back, He hired a PR consultant who drafted a statement posted to his personal LinkedIn. I deeply regret the misunderstanding that occurred at the Harrington Grand. My actions were based on standard security protocols, not on race. I have always treated every guest with dignity and respect, and I am confident that a full review will support that record. The internet tore it apart in hours. Former employees replied with their own stories. A valet named Marcus. Brianna made a mental note to learn his real name, as it turned out this was a pseudonym he used to protect his identity. Described being told by Derek to prioritize the nicer cars and to use judgment about who gets the valet and who parks themselves. A former bartender recalled Derek instructing staff to seat black guests at tables near the kitchen rather than by the windows. Every story confirmed the same pattern. Derek Caldwell hadn't made one mistake. He had built a system. Meanwhile, Brianna moved quietly and decisively. She promoted Terrence from bellhop to front desk supervisor. His first week, he greeted every guest the same way, with a smile, eye contact, and a genuine, "Welcome to the Harrington. How can I help you today?" He didn't check what they were wearing first. She called Gloria Simmons personally. The conversation lasted 40 minutes. At the end of it, Gloria was rehired as Director of Housekeeping Operations, a newly created position, with full back pay for the 18 months she'd been out of work, a 30% raise over her previous salary, and health insurance that covered her children. Gloria cried on the phone, not from relief, from being believed. Brianna announced a mandatory diversity and inclusion training program across all 12 of her hotels. Every employee, from housekeeping to general management, would complete it within 90 days. She partnered with the Charleston chapter of the NAACP to design the curriculum. They invited her to deliver the keynote at their annual gala. She accepted with 2 words: I'd be honored. The Charleston Police Department, under mounting public pressure, launched an internal affairs review of Sergeant Briggs and Officer Hanley's conduct during the incident. The review focused on whether they had followed proper procedures or had deferred excessively to Derek's authority without independently assessing the situation. Briggs was placed on administrative leave pending the outcome. Hanley cooperated fully with the investigation and was reassigned. 6 months later, the sign above the revolving door had changed. The Harrington Grand was gone. In its place, mounted in brushed bronze against Charleston brick, the Foster Grand Hotel. The lobby looked different too. Not the marble, that stayed. Not the chandeliers, those stayed. But the flowers on the center table were fresh. The water in the vase was clear. The front desk was staffed by 2 people, both standing, both smiling, neither on a phone. Terrence stood behind the concierge station, front desk supervisor. He wore a navy blazer with a gold name tag, just like Derek's had been. Except Terrence earned his. His first day, he placed a small card at every check-in station. It read, "Welcome to the Foster Grand. Everyone belongs here." Brianna didn't see it until her second visit. She picked it up, read it, set it down, and said nothing. But Terrence noticed she touched the corner of her eye before turning away. Gloria Simmons ran housekeeping like a general. Her team had grown from 8 to 14. Guest satisfaction for cleanliness jumped 31%. She held Monday briefings in the break room, coffee, pastries, a 5-minute check-in where every housekeeper could speak without fear. She kept a framed screenshot on her desk. The moment in Craig Whitmore's video where Brianna said, "That's exactly the point." Below it, in Gloria's handwriting, "She believed me." The hotel's ratings were the highest in a decade. The diversity program Brianna launched was being studied by 2 hospitality schools as an industry model. She still visited unannounced, still wore jeans, still drove the rental. But now the staff greeted her by name, not because they had to, because they wanted to. On a Thursday in October, a young black woman walked into the lobby, maybe 22, sundress, small duffel bag. She stood near the entrance with the uncertain look of someone not sure she was allowed to be there. Terrence walked over. "Welcome to the Foster Grant. Can I help you?" She hesitated. "I don't have a reservation. I wasn't sure if—" "We always have room." He picked up her bag and carried it to the desk himself. Brianna watched from a chair near the fireplace. She didn't say a word. Derek Caldwell was last seen working the front desk of a budget motel off Interstate 26, 40 miles from Charleston. He declined every interview. His LinkedIn was deleted. The civil rights case settled out of court. Damages undisclosed but described as significant. He was barred from hospitality management for 5 years. His false incident report, the one calling Brianna highly aggressive, became Exhibit A in the EEOC investigation. Sergeant Briggs retired early. Officer Hanley transferred to community policing and completed bias training voluntarily. He never spoke publicly, but a colleague said Hanley told him one thing. "I should have spoken up. I knew it was wrong. I just stood there." Craig Whitmore's video reached 43 million views. It was cited in a congressional hearing on racial profiling, and Brianna Foster bought her 13th hotel. What would you have done if you were Brianna? Would you have revealed yourself right away, or waited? Drop your answer in the comments. If this story made you feel something, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe, because stories like this need to be told. And we're just getting started.
43 million views, a federal investigation, a 6 years period, erased in 30 minutes, all because one man looked at a woman in jeans and decided she was nobody. But the part that stays with me is not the firing, it's Terrence, a young man who offered a stranger water and was screened for it. Months later, he's standing behind the same front desk, wearing the name tag, greeting every guest the same way. No judgment, just "Welcome, how can I help you?" Brianna didn't just remove a bad manager. She rehired Gloria with full back pay. She promoted Terrence. She put a card at every desk and read, "Everyone belongs here." That's not revenge, that's legacy. That's women turning pain into something that outlasts the people who caused it. Real talk. I keep thinking about Brianna standing on that sidewalk, not crying, not screaming, just waiting, with the deed, the whole building 1 block away. Have you ever walked into a place and felt someone decide you didn't belong before you even opened your mouth? What did you do? What do you wish you've done? Drop it in the comments. I want to hear your stories. If this hit you, share it with someone who needs it today. Subscribe, hit the bell. We've got another story coming that will stop you mid-scroll. Your worth was never determined at the door. It's determined by what you carry when you walk back in.